Limited hip internal rotation, as seen on my right leg, is a leading cause of ITB syndrome. With ITB syndrome, you usually have pain on the outside of your knee or even the outside of your hip. The problem is most rehab exercises are those clamshells, the side steps, the bridges, where the only focus is on strengthening the hip. If we never address hip internal rotation and opening up the posterior part of our hip in order to access more hip internal rotation, it's going to be really hard to get out of pain. The reason behind this comes down to what's happening in mid stance. When we're in mid stance, one leg's on the ground, the other leg is swinging through, and the leg that's on the ground requires a lot of single leg stability. It also requires a lot of hip internal rotation, being able to control that hip internal rotation. If we can't do this, it's going to place more load on the outside of your knee, probably where you're experiencing the pain. So today I'm going to show you 3 of my favorite hip internal rotation exercises that will help loosen up the hip and make it so it doesn't feel stuck or even pinchy. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa. I'm a physical therapist and I've helped thousands of runners return to pain-free running after experiencing ITB syndrome. I've had ITB syndrome myself after my first marathon, so I know these exercises work. If you want a full rehab plan, check out the hip rehab program. Walks you through step by step with running specific rehab exercises that are going to progress you and address the source of the pain. So I'll link that below in the show notes. I've had tons of runners with ITB syndrome go through this hip rehab program. You don't have to see a doctor. You don't have to drive to PT or pay a copay or pay your insurance. You just go through each exercise each day and it progresses you and it's specific to running. For the first exercise, I'm going to use a light weight and I'm going to show this exercise on both sides. I do recommend doing it on both sides, even if you only have pain on one side. And we're going to do about 10 reps on each side. So what you're going to do to start is lay on your back and hold the weight with one hand. Use a light weight with this one. This isn't a shoulder exercise or anything like that. It's really just to keep your shoulder down. So I'm going to hold the weight with my right hand. I'm going to bring my right knee up to hip height like this, and I'm going to bring my right leg across my left leg. So my right knee is about to tap the ground and I'm going to come back to that starting position. I'm going to cross over, keeping my weight over my shoulder. You'll feel a nice stretch in your back and your spine and even your hips, and you'll come back and you're dynamically flowing through this exercise. So when I'm crossing my right knee over my left hip like this, I'm working on left hip internal rotation, but like I said, I do recommend doing this on both sides. It should feel good. It shouldn't be painful at all. Second exercise, we're going to really emphasize opening up the posterior capsule of the hip joint. This is going to allow the hip to rotate more into hip internal rotation. I'm going to break down this exercise because it does require a couple of steps, but it feels really good when you get it right. Start on all fours like this, and you're going to straighten out your right knee. Next step is to pivot your left hip into some external rotation. I'm not going into a full pigeon pose. I'm not going into a figure 4 or trying to see how high up I can get my foot. I just want it into a little bit of external rotation. From here, I'm going to drop my right knee down and I'm just going to hook it under my ankle like this. Now from here, if you already feel a stretch, you can breathe into this position. The next step would be to bring your forearms down to the ground. You should start to feel a stretch in the back of your left hip. You're going to breathe into this. You should not feel anything in the front part of your left hip, but make sure you're breathing into this, relaxing your shoulders. Now, if this is too easy or you feel like you want the next progression, all you're going to do is bring your left elbow to your left knee. When I do this, it creates a little bit of a side bend in my spine, and then I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to stretch it straight out. I'm going to make sure my neck stays neutral, not going to side bend my neck, but this is just going to deepen that stretch into that posterior capsule. It should feel good, and I'm just going to breathe into this for about 10 breaths. Now from the front view, so you can see what this looks like, straightening out my right leg, pivoting my left hip into external rotation, hooking my knee right under my ankle. I'm not forcing it. And then I'm going to come down to my forearms. And then if I want that progression, I'm going to bring my left elbow to my left knee, straighten out my right hand, and breathe into this position. So you will feel the stretch right in the back part of that hip. Don't force anything, just breathe into about 10 breaths, whether you're starting at that modification or you're going into that progression. For the last exercise, you're gonna take a foam roller, doesn't matter if it's a large foam roller or a short foam roller, and you're gonna place it against the wall. I'm gonna show you this exercise like I have right ITB syndrome, just based on the setup so you can see everything. But I'm gonna place it on the inside of my right knee like this, and against the wall like this. I'm gonna stand on my right leg, cross my arms, and I'm just gonna slightly tilt forward, not going into a full deadlift or RDL, just a slight trunk lean forward. From here, all I'm gonna do is take my hips and my pelvis, my trunk, and my shoulders, and I'm gonna rotate it to the right because I'm standing on my right leg. So I'm gonna rotate it towards the side that I'm standing on. And then I'm gonna come back to that starting position. So I'm gonna rotate my whole body as far as I can. If you feel this in your low back, make sure you're rotating at your hips and your pelvis. And then I'm gonna rotate back. So we're working into hip internal rotation. You might also feel a burn on the outside of your glute because now we're starting to stabilize into a little bit of that internal rotation as well, which is a must. If we have that mobility, we need to be able to control that mobility as well with stability. So we're gonna rotate towards that front leg and back. It's not a big movement, it's not a fast movement, and I recommend doing about 10 to 12 of these on that side that has the pain. Now I want you to try these exercises about 5 to 6 times throughout the week, ideally before your next run, so you can add it in with your dynamic warm-up. Now keep in mind, these exercises are mobility exercises. You got a hint of a stability exercise with that third exercise, but most of them are working on that mobility. So in order to really decrease that ITB syndrome, this is just the first part. The second part is that we are able to control that hip internal rotation by using our glutes more, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this next video.